Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing the sixth mass extinction of life on Earth. If that one doesn't grab you, I don't know what does. If that isn't the biggest news story, I don't know what is. Otherwise, we just continue to live in the Anthropocene being the huge effect of the human species on the planet, and how undeniable that is. We have already seen in the last few years some very large, catastrophes involving weather, floods, hurricanes, drought, fires, etc. And the next year or two should probably bring more of that. I think, obviously, one of the main things driving all this weather whiplash or weather ricochet or weather mayhem is the fact that we are losing the Arctic sea ice at an incredible pace, and it continues. If we do not see a blue ocean event this year, it is very, very likely, and I think in a lot of people's minds, people who are following climate change, that we have until probably 2020 before we see a blue ocean event in the Arctic. And that will mean very bad things. To just get into some climate change news and bring you different aspects of climate change. That's what this channel is about. There are so many vectors, if you will, of the destruction of the Earth. There's global warming, there's pollution, there's coral bleaching, there's ocean acidification, there's loss of sea ice, loss of glaciers, drought, fire, species extinction, the extinction of insects, fish. Just the list goes on, and it is overwhelming. It is an overwhelming avalanche of proof that we are not in a good place. So please take this news to heart, if you will. This is from the Washington Post. Shell, yes, that Shell just outlined a radical scenario for what it would take to halt climate change. And this, I kind of just briefly skimmed through this. This is from today, or yesterday, excuse me, the Washington Post. Chris Mooney and Stephen Mufson. And this might be actually good for a few laughs, if you will. But let's see what they got to say. Royal Dutch Shell on Monday outlined a scenario in which by 2070, we would be using far less of the company's own product, oil. As cars become electric, a massive carbon storage industry develops and transportation begins a shift towards reliance on, hold on, hit a firewall real quick. That wasn't supposed to happen. Do I have this on my phone? Maybe I'll just read this off my phone rather than play games with this. Maybe not. So sorry, guys. Bear with me. Let's see if they... Here we go. If I read quickly, maybe I can get it in. As cars become electric, A massive carbon storage industry develops and transportation begins a shift towards a reliance on hydrogen as an energy carrier. The company's Sky scenario was designed to imagine a world that complies with the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, managing to hold the planet's warming to well below a rise of 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels. Shell has said that it supports the Paris Agreement. The scenario, which finds the world in a net zero emission state by 2070, is based on the idea that a simple extension of current efforts, whether efficiency mandates, modest carbon taxes, or renewable energy supports, is insufficient for the scale of change required, the oil company document reads. The relevant transformations in the energy and natural systems require concurrent climate policy action and the deployment of disruptive new technologies at mass scale within government policy environments that strongly incentivize investment and innovation. The company also cautioned that Sky is only a scenario, a possible future dependent on many assumptions, not a reality that will definitely be realized. That's how the sentence is supposed to be read. Shell is one of the globe's largest publicly traded oil companies and produced 3.7 million barrels of oil equivalent per day last year. But the company's own recent investments reflect a slight change in focus, or at least a hedging of its bets. In October, it purchased New Motion, an electric vehicle charging company. Shell now operates a small number of stations providing hydrogen fuel to vehicles in the United States and Europe, and is involved in pursuing carbon capture and storage technologies through its Quest project in the Canadian oil sands and the enormous Gorgon project in Australia. The company has also acquired BG Group, a major natural gas company, as part of the placing greater emphasis on producing natural gas, which releases fewer greenhouse gases during combustion than oil or coal. The company is being pressured by some shareholders to do more on climate change, though some investors support the current state of the company. It's whatever you guys are doing is great. Keep on going. Anytime we see a forecast looking out many decades, in this case 2070, well, it's interesting that they've moved that data by 30 years. It can be an interesting talking point, but does not seriously influence investor decisions, said Paul Molcanoff, energy analyst at the investment firm Raymond James, said in an email. Even for long-term oriented investors, that is simply too distant a time frame. Royal Dutch Shell Chief Executive Ben van Beurden, in past interviews with the Washington Post, has acknowledged that climate change is real and that action is needed, but has asserted that the world will need to keep burning fossil fuels even if renewable energy catapults forward. It doesn't mean we have to kiss hydrocarbons goodbye. In fact, we can't, he said. In November, the company said that it would cut the carbon footprint of making, not burning, its own petroleum products by 20% by 2035 and by about half by 2050. Shareholder groups, however, have noted that if Shell increases its overall fossil fuel production, then it will undercut some of those gains. Last year, shareholders overwhelmingly rejected a proposal by an environmental group calling for Shell to set and publish annual targets to reduce carbon emissions. In the Sky scenario, the world's consumption of oil would rise through 2025 before starting to decline. Global oil consumption would begin to drop in the 2030 and in 2030, in the year 2030 is what they meant to say, fall below current levels in 2040. Liquid hydrocarbon fuel consumption almost halves between 2020 and 2050 and falls by 90% by 2070 in the sector, the document says. It is striking that the company built on energy flow commodities see them declining permanently after 2040, said Peter Fox-Penner, director of the Institute for Sustainable Energy at Boston University, in an emailed comment on the scenario. Other changes are just as massive. Nuclear power would triple. The total use of electricity would expand fivefold. Really, the world would be equipped with 10,000 carbon capture and storage installations. Question, where is the waste from nuclear power plants and all of the people using all of this electricity and all of this, the creating of all these carbon captured installations? Where, oh, where is this waste going to go? The reliance on CCS stands out in sky, and what surprised me was the rapid decline in natural gas after 2040, said Morgan Bazillion. Morgan Bazillion, a professor at the Colorado School of Mines, who studies energy, that's mines, not mines, studies energy and fossil fuels. Those are interesting contours, given Shell's move toward natural gas in the recent past. Bazillion praised Shell's future energy scenarios in general, noting, in my mind, Shell has always been a leader in this space, and that is again the case with Sky. Molchanov said in an email, or Molchanov, most of the trends that Shell is describing, with the notable exception of carbon capture, are already commercially viable. Some are in widespread use, while others, e.g. hydrogen and transportation, are in early stages of adoption. But still, extrapolating from current trends of half-century into the future is a textbook example of more art than science. Boston University's Fox Penner agreed Shell's scenario contains all the core elements of what's necessary to decarbonize world energy by later in this century, and that many of the required pieces already exist in some form. But some changes, he said, are a lot harder to accomplish than others, such as cutting emissions in the agriculture sector and from key industrial processes. A lot harder to accomplish. Key industrial processes and agriculture. So yeah, how are you gonna accomplish that? Other than just saying we gotta do it. The greatest constraint is certainly not technology. It is political and economic disruption to governments and economies who depend on the current system, who must find the funds to retire a huge capital stock early and rebuild it in place, he said in an email. Yeah, good point as well. We have plenty of money that is being sucked out of our current budgets, you know, trillions of dollars that the Department of Defense is losing every couple of years. So there's, you know, plenty of money there, if only it could be accounted for. Yeah. If only the actors in the government were not there to facilitate the bilking of the taxpayer dollars and the destruction of the economy on the way. If only people could spend, you know, spend money ethically and make ethical decisions. Perhaps we might actually have a chance, but you never know. Let's see. Moving on. Counterpunch, March 27th. That's today. Robert Hunziker. Insect decimation upstages global warming. Everybody's heard about global warming. It is one of the most advertised existential events of all time. Who isn't aware? Let's say a great percentage of the population. However, there's a new kid on the block. An alarming loss of insects will likely take down humanity before global warming hits maximum velocity. For the immediate future, the Paris Accord is riding the wrong horse, as global warming is a long-term project compared to the insect catastrophe happening right now. Where else is found 40 to 90% species devastation? The worldwide loss of insects is simply staggering, with some reports of 75% up to 90%. Happening much faster than paleoclimate record rate, the paleoclimate record rate of the past 5 major extinction events. It is possible that some insect species may already be close to total extinction. It's established that species evolve and then go extinct over thousands and millions of years as part of nature's course, but the current rate of devastation is simply off the charts and downright scary. Please take note, natural evolutionary people, natural cycles of the earth people. Without any doubt, it is difficult to imagine how humanity survives without insects, which are dropping dead in bunches right before our eyes. For proof, how many insect splats do people clean off windshields nowadays? I would have to say not many at all, if ever, on my windshield. Not many. How many fireflies do children chase at night? Not many. Several naturalists And environmental writers believe the massive loss of insects has everything to do with 3 generations of industrialized farming and the vast tides of poisons pouring over the landscape year after year, especially since the end of World War II. Ours is the first ever pesticide-based agricultural society. Dreadfully, it's an experiment that is going dead wrong all of a sudden. Insects are basic to thousands of food chains. For example, the disappearance of Britain's farmland birds by over 50% in 40 years. Additionally, North America and Europe species of birds like larch swallows and swifts that feast on flying insects have plummeted. But these are only a few of many, many recorded examples of massive numbers of wildlife dropping dead right before our eyes. Significantly, insects are the primary source for ecosystem creation and support. The world literally crumbles apart without mischievous burrowing, farming new soil, aerating soil, pollinating food crops, etc. Nutrient for humans happens because insects pollinate. That would be called ecosystem services, if you want to give it its proper title in the economic chain. Ecosystem services, which get no very, very little management, if not zero management. One of the world's best and oldest entomological resources, and it does get managed on some level. I have to correct myself. Some people are managing ecosystem services, but against the rate at which we are destroying the environment, it is but a finger in the dike. One of the world's best and oldest entomological resources in Crefeld is Crefeld Entomological Society, established in 1905, tracking insect abundance at more than 100 nature reserves. They first noticed a significant drop-off of insects in 2013 when the total mass of catch fell by 80%. Again, in 2014, the numbers were just as low. Subsequently, the society discovered huge declines in several observation sites throughout Western Europe. For example, Crefeld data for hoverflies, a pollinator often mistaken for a bee, registered 17,291 hoverflies from 143 species trapped in a reserve in 1989. Whereas by 2014, at the same location, 2,737 individuals from 104 species, down 84%. Down under in Australia, anecdotal evidence similarly shows an unusual fall-off of insect populations. For example, Jack Hasenpusch, an entomologist and owner of the Australian insect farm, collects swarms of wild insects, but now says, I've been wondering for the last few years why some of the insects have been dropping off. This year has really taken the cake with the lack of insects. It's left me dumbfounded. I can't figure out what's going on. Concerned, Mr. Hasenpusch talked to entomologists in Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, New Caledonia, and Italy. All of them related similar experiences. According to entomologists Dr. Cameron Webb, University of Sydney, researchers around the world widely acknowledge the problem of insect decline, but are at a loss to explain the causes. I wonder why. Obviously, something dreadful is suddenly happening throughout the entire biosphere. Excuse me. The insect catastrophe is a relatively new phenomenon that has caught society unaware, blindsided. Interestingly, 97% of the animal kingdom consists of invertebrates such as insects, crabs, lobsters, clams, octopuses, jellyfish, and worms, etc. Scientists have been noticing the problem for some time now, but widespread public knowledge is simply not there. Jürgen Deckert, insect custodian at the Berlin Natural History Museum, is worried that there's a risk we will only really take notice once it is too late. This 80 or 90% decline too late. Oh, is that when it's too late? The Senckenberg Entomological Institute in Frankfurt reported a 40% decline in butterfly and burnet moth species over a period of decades. The Stanford University Global Index, developed by Rodolfo Durzo, Rodolfo, I guess, but anyways, Rodolfo Durzo showed a 45% decline for invertebrates over 4 decades. Of 3,623 terrestrial invertebrate species on the International Union for Conservation of the Nature Red List, 42% are classified as threatened with extinction. The Zoological Society of London in 2012 published a major survey concluding that many insect populations are in severe decline, and in both the US and Europe, researchers have recorded 40% declines in bee populations because of colony collapse disorder and sharp losses of monarch butterflies. Of particular concern is the widespread use of pesticides and their impact on non-target species. Many conservationists view a special class of pesticides called neonicotinoids, used over many years in Europe until a partial ban in 2013, as the prime suspect for insect losses. There are many indications that what we see is the result of a widespread poisoning of our landscape, says Leif Miller, Director General of the German chapter of BirdLife International, IBID. Widespread poisoning of ecosystems is the norm in modern-day society. Ours is a poisoned planet. This explosion in chemical use and release has all happened so rapidly that most people are blissfully unaware of its true magnitude and extent, or for the dangers it now poses to us all, as well as to future generations for centuries to come. Most people are blissfully unaware, maybe a blessing in disguise, as the angst, dread, and uneasiness that knowledge of this horrendous crisis brings is the root cause of several bouts of sleeplessness, along with difficult spells of deep depression. Yeah, so that's happening. We know that's happening. Question is if we are going to be able to stop poisoning our planet. Poison, pollution, warming, habitat destruction, mining, other resource extractions, fishing. Are we going to stop doing these things that are taking our planet down? Ecosystem services. What is that true? I mean, what truly is it going to take to make sure that we have a planet that supports us? Very logical and easy answer would be that we need to support it with actions and not just words. Start today. There are many ways to do this. That's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I'm going to come back with one more very soon. Till then, peace.